Hi, in this second video we rejoin the postponed Clipper race. We complete leg 6, which is the race from the Philippines all the way across to Seattle, and we complete part of leg 7, which is then Seattle down to the Panama Canal. The Clipper fleet had been stuck for 2 years in the Philippines. I did my best to keep fit, reading my training notes, practicing my knots. Thankfully, I could also take part in some Clipper refreshing sailing opportunities in 2021. Towards the end of that year, we received clearance from the Philippine government that we could travel out through a special dispensation for international sporting events. Although the COVID virus appeared more manageable, China remained closed to overseas visitors. So it was in January 2022 we set off again for the Philippines. On arrival into the Philippines, the crew had to comply with a number of COVID requirements and also quarantine restrictions. In addition, we had an earthquake with a 6.4 magnitude, which I managed to sleep through. We had to complete 3 days of quarantine isolation in our hotel rooms. Our meals were left outside of our rooms and on the whole were fairly uninspiring. Here's Chris from Canada sharing with us his experience of one of his meals.
It's so nice that our quarantine hotel takes care of us and gives us free dinner. Just gonna make this better. There we go.
3 days in quarantine provides time for a lot of thinking. I was wondering how Dawn was coping without me. As you can see, Dawn was surviving and had gone off to visit some friends on the Isle of Skye. Following our period in quarantine and a further 3 weeks of boat preparation, which included a week's refresher sailing and also individual assessments, Clipper took the decision. The Clipper race would restart, but we would have to sail past China as it was still closed to visitors. We would instead sail straight to Seattle. This would be the longest distance race in the Clipper race history and was expected to take up to 32 days at sea. At last, we were off. We made our way up to the north coast of the Philippines for a Le Mans race start. The Le Mans race start involves all 11 boats in the fleet lining up in the same direction, under engine power and at the same speed. The mainsail on each boat is raised, and all crew are behind or aft of the first grinder. There is then a countdown during which the engine is switched off and the crews rush forward to raise the same head sails. We then sail in a straight line for a further 10 minutes before being free to change direction and also change our sail configuration. So let's join my crew for the final stages of the countdown, after which we race forward and raise the head sails.
You're gonna knock it off as well.
Yeah.
Oh no, grind. Hold! Bring it on!
Ready, Gary. Ready?
The journey across the North Pacific is huge. We left the Philippines and headed on out past China and Japan and out into the very cold North Pacific. We would be alone. The nearest people to us in the North Pacific will be flying above us in the space station. This was going to be my first ocean crossing. It was going to be a big one. So with around 30 days at sea and no contact with the outside world, I was hoping that Dawn wasn't too busy at home looking after the house and garden and that she was coping without me. Well, it looks like Dawn was coping well. In fact, she was out in Singapore with our daughter, our son-in-law and our granddaughter, wearing her replica race kit, watching us leave the Philippines via the internet coverage. So we left behind us the beauty and the heat of the Philippines, which had been our home for the last month. We enjoyed some glorious warm sailing days as we passed by China and then Japan before then heading out into the big North Pacific Ocean. It became colder and colder. Temperatures dropped to near zero, less with the wind chill factor, and the waves became bigger and bigger. Partway across the Pacific, it became clear that the expected journey of 28 to 32 days would take longer due to unfavourable weather and wind conditions. We had to spread out our food supplies. We are running out of a number of items. Wraps and baked beans became a firm favourite as we approached land and Seattle. Finally, as we entered Puget Sound, we could see Mount Rainier in the distance with the city of Seattle coming into view soon. A very welcome sight. So what do you look like after 37 days at sea? That's 37 days without having a proper wash, a shave, and your body experiencing the equivalent of an all-day gym workout every day. Well, you look like an old sea dog who has lost over 1.5 stones in weight. My Californian cousins were there to meet me. They fed me, and we took in some of the highlights of Seattle, including the famous fish market and the Seattle Tower. As the Clipper race was running late, we had just 5 days in Seattle before we had to set off again. Leg 7 was another big race, going south to the Panama Canal and then on to Bermuda. So we set off down the west coast of America to sail past Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, before making a short refueling stop in Costa Rica and then moving on to Panama. We then travelled through the Panama Canal and up through the Caribbean to Bermuda, our final destination on this leg. At the start of leg 7, we were still in the northern part of the North Pacific, and it was cold at first, but gradually, bit by bit, we moved into warmer days. With the warmer days, we had clearer skies, and we could wear shorts and t-shirts, spending time on deck doing sail repairs and other activities. These were sunny days, champagne sailing, mainly downwind, and so flatter conditions on board. We were blessed by the wildlife that came to see us too.
Oh, look at that.
We sailed on down the west coast of America, down past California, and level with San Francisco, where my relatives live. I was wondering how they were doing. I was wondering how Dawn was getting on without me. As you can see, Dawn was coping well. In fact, was closer to me than I would have thought. She too was visiting our relatives in California, which actually wasn't part of the plan or the original budget. The race stopped before Panama due to the dropping wind conditions, so we motored on and into Costa Rica for a refueling stop, a bar, and a nice cup of coffee. The next day we set off to Panama. Panama is largely what you would expect it to be, a conduit for merchant shipping seeking to take the shortcut between the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. It is a modern city with high crime rates, so a need to be sensible and careful. The old city in Panama is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's a beautiful place to visit. For those of us who had endured long periods of damp and cold crossing of the North Pacific, our hands and feet started to peel away the dead skin. Not pleasant to look at, but also not so painful either. I did some washing in the hotel, but I couldn't dry it due to the humidity outside, so I did my best with the iron. After a couple of days, we moved on to motor through the Panama Canal, an iconic experience and one that I had looked forward to. This is a big canal where the huge container boats and tankers are pulled through the locks by trains on either side. Our small boats go alongside them using our motors. The Panama Canal took the best part of the day to travel through, but on completing this task we had crossed from the Pacific to the Atlantic, and we are definitely on our way home. In finishing off the second video, we have another prize quiz question. I would like to know, in what year was the Panama Canal opened? I'll give you 5 seconds to have a think about it, and then we'll see who's won the prize.